What's going on? It's your boy Maji, and we're about to be checking out Karl Anthony Towns' trade with the Timberwolves, which includes Julius Randle and maybe some other key factors that I ain't know about.
Breaking news in the CBS Sports HQ, a blockbuster Friday night trade as The Athletic reports that the New York Knicks have agreed to a deal to acquire Karl Anthony Towns from the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Knicks will be sending back a package that includes Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. Towns has...
Okay, so basically, the Knicks got Karl Anthony Towns, and Minnesota got Julius Randle and Dante, in the first round draft pick. I'm going to say that it was kind of like an even trade. I'm not gonna lie. I think it was an even trade due to the fact that Minnesota got an extra person. If it was just Julius Randle for Karl Anthony Towns, I would have said that would have been a steal for the Knicks. The Knicks would have just robbed them. But since the Knicks gave them also a first round draft pick, Julius Randle and Dante, I feel like that's enough for Karl Anthony Towns. Not gonna lie. I'm not really a big fan of Julius Randle. Don't get me wrong, he's a hooper, but he just be playing too much ISO ball that it just don't work out.
spent his entire 9-year career in Minnesota, averaging over 20 points per game for the last 8 seasons, and last season helped lead the T-Wolves to the Western Conference Finals. And for more on this shocking news, we bring in CBS Sports NBA insider Bill Ryder. And Bill, I don't know about you, but I was sitting there in the control room.
He's been there for like 9-10 years, you know what I'm saying? So it was kind of like a now or never with them. I just don't think Julius Randle was the key factor for the Timberwolves, to be honest. Like, I really do think they should have got rid of Rudy Gobert, try to get a different piece, maybe a bench player and or somebody else like a point guard to help with the Timberwolves, because if you have Nas Reed, you start Nas Reed and you get a good point guard and you have Anthony Edwards and I can't think of the young boy's name. McDaniels at the 3. You still got Karl Anthony at the 4. I think that is a great solid lineup. I'm not gonna lie. That's a scary lineup. I just don't think Rudy Gobert is that good of a player, to be honest with y'all.
Thinking, oh, this is a great Friday night. I'm going to see if Miami's going to get upset by Virginia Tech. Then all of a sudden, I see the report. And I literally had to look at it for like 10 seconds. Is this real? Did they really make this trade? So from your perspective, what was your reaction seeing this news?
Yeah, first reaction is yours, Chris. It's a jaw dropper. It's a shocker.
Yeah, it's a shocker.
It'll wake you up on a Friday night, especially on the East Coast, where it's a little bit later than out here in LA.
It was kind of
and then
crazy.
with a little chance to sort of try to process it, it at least fit some of the talk around the NBA. Certainly in Minnesota, there were a lot of concerns.
Like, as a Thunder player, they got Julius Randle and Dante. I'm thinking this is a piece of cake now. Because there's no longer 2 7-footers in the paint. Julius Randle has no arsenal game. I'm not even gonna kid y'all. Like, he got some good post game, but I'm not worried about him shooting that 3 like I would be Karl Anthony Towns. Like, to be honest, like, yeah, Karl will be having his off games, but so does Julius Randle. Like, Julius Randle had plenty of off games, and I just don't think that fits the style of the Timberwolves, because you already got Rudy Gobert, who can't shoot to save his damn life, and then you just paired it with somebody else who can't shoot. So I just don't think this was a real good win for the Timberwolves. I think this is a real good win for the Knicks, even though they wanted to keep the Villanova bros or buddies or whatever you want to call them. I think with the Knicks having Jalen Brunson, Bridges, Josh Hart, Karl Anthony Towns. Well, they lost Hartenstein, so I really don't know who their center would be. I guess Towns would be their center. I don't know who is going to be their power forward then. I'll have to just do a little bit more research into that, which, I mean, I could kind of look into right now. I'll look at that later. But, yeah.
about their financial flexibility going forward with the second apron and the massive contracts they've already put out there that they're going to have to. There's also an ownership battle. Who's going to control that team?
I'm thinking about it. I figured it out now. I didn't even have to look it up. Their center is Mitch Robinson. Yeah, so they put Karl Anthony Towns at the 4 and Robinson at the 5. That's a solid lineup, bro. I'm not gonna lie. I think the Knicks became a little bit more deadlier than they were last year, and it was really good last year, to be honest with you.
Team and a lawsuit that's underway. So some questions about whether or not there's just gonna be the money to finance the team as it is. So this creates some financial flexibility. And for the Knicks, there's certainly been some rumblings that they had come to the conclusion, as much as having Julius Randle back in the mix would be great. They had a great season last year, largely without him. They made that run through the postseason without him. And so it's a shocker, but it sort of makes sense from a Timberwolves perspective because this gives them some financial flexibility and a little more depth. They were sort of handcuffed with what they could do. And for New York City and for the Knicks, I like it for both teams, Chris, but I love it for New York because Julius Randle is someone they thought maybe they could do without. And they get, obviously, they're losing Dante DiVincenzo, which is a big loss. But Cat is such an offensive boost to a team that's already stocked up and loaded and looked like a contender before this trade in the Eastern Conference.
So when it comes to the Knicks, right, and how they stack up against the Celtics, who won the NBA title this year, does this move inch them closer to being right there on the doorstep or looking eye to eye with Boston? Because on the...
Not gonna lie, does this make the Knicks closer to beating Boston from a repeat? I do think it will go to a game 6 or 7. Just depending on like if everybody's healthy, everybody stayed the same. I don't know. I still think the Celtics will pull that out because they just have so many deadly people on their team. They got Drew Holiday, JB, JT, Porzingis, Al Horford. They got some people off the bench. I think they even added somebody else. I think they added like, I could be wrong, but Buddy Hield or something like that, or it was somebody from the Lakers. Lonnie Walker, I think it was one of those guys. They added him on the team. Coming off the bench is like, it's already enough having a starting 5 like that, but having somebody who can facilitate, get you some buckets while you're trying to rest key players, I think that's crucial.
On the other side, Bill, we talked about it off camera. Karl Anthony Towns, defense, that's not his calling card. His calling card is to be able to stretch the floor, right? He can really shoot. He can also take you off the dribble. But defensively, with Tom Thibodeau, Tom Thibodeau is defense.
You better do it. Yeah. No, you said it like he can, but...
I totally forgot that Tom Thibodeau is their coach. So, no, I do not think they could beat the Celtics. I'm sorry.
I'll say it, he doesn't. And with Tibbs, is he better? It's a gamble. I think it's a really impressive gamble. To answer your question, I do think, yes, when you have an arms race, when you have somebody pulling...
I mean, look at the teams he coached. He coached the Bulls. He coached the Knicks. I think he coached one other team. They didn't do anything. Like, yeah, they was really good in the regular season, but, like, to be honest, I don't think his coach style really fits most of the NBA players nowadays. I think, don't get me wrong, defense is great. I just think the way he goes about defense is wrong. Like, he starts his starting 5 for almost the whole game and expect them to play defense. And it's like, it's not going to happen.
Away in a competitive circumstance, and that's the Boston Celtics. And let the Sixers in, too. We'll see what they do and what they're about. But bringing in Paul George was a huge move by Daryl Morey. You got to respond if you want to be in that sort of at that level. And the Knicks have done that. They did it with Bridges, and they do it again with Cat. So, yes, I think that they're on the level, Chris, think, with Boston, at least on paper. Now, you don't win championships on paper.
If I had to rank, like, all 3 of those teams, since they all gotten somebody that is a big star, you know what I'm saying? 76ers getting Paul George, Knicks getting Karl Anthony Towns, and Celtics just keeping everybody and adding like small additions. I really still think that the Celtics are just a tier above everybody else. Then I would probably say the 76ers and the Knicks. I will put the Knicks above the 76ers only if Joel is not healthy like he was last year. So, I mean, I guess I could say the Knicks above the 76ers just due to the fact that Joel is really never, ever healthy. So, I'll probably just say Celtics, Knicks, 76ers. The Bucks are in there. I just don't think they're like top 3. I think they're like 3, 4, maybe 5, depending on like what's going on. You know, Giannis got to stay healthy. Chris Middleton got to stay healthy. Lillard got to find himself on the team. Since he's used to being the person to do everything. Now being with Giannis, it's kind of like hard to do everything that you want to. So yeah.
The Boston Celtics, it took a lot of heartbreak and a lot of near misses and a finals appearance a couple years ago where they didn't succeed to kind of get there as a team. But on paper, I think that this gives the New York Knicks the firepower to compete with anybody in the Eastern Conference. And if they can figure it out, part of that being the defensive realities for Cat and what that head coach wants in New York, I think they can compete with anybody in the NBA now.
So Knicks fans certainly love hearing that, and of course they definitely want Cat to embody what Tibbs wants in terms of their defensive identity. When you look in the Western Conference with the T-Wolves, right, and how this changes the way we look at them, what do you think this does for their chances to get to an NBA Finals, knowing all the pros and cons that Julius Randle brings to the team? And then also, you got Dante DiVincenzo, so that adds some defensive.
Okay, now on to the Timberwolves. I do not think they will be as high as they were last year. What were they, like the 3 seed? I think they were. Yeah, there was 3 seed because they played the Suns. The Suns were 6, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I don't see them being the 3 seed. I see them being like a 5, 6 seed, maybe 7 seed, or trying to get into the play-in. I do not see them any higher than 3. If they do get back to 3, but I highly doubt them even getting to 3. They can get to 4. I just don't see Julius Randle being a bigger step than Cat was last year. And they didn't even have Cat that much last year. But I just don't think Julius Randle gives you that jump. You know what I'm saying? Especially in the West, you know, where you have OKC, you have the Lakers, you have the Suns, you have the Kings who may come back to hoop for real. You have the Mavs who just added Klay Thompson on their team. I wouldn't count out Golden State, even though they lost Klay Thompson. I just don't count them out. The Spurs, since they have an addition of CP3 and Wembanyama together, having Pop as the coach, I feel like they sneak themselves in there. Memphis can sneak themselves back into the conversation with John Morant coming back from injury and other violence that he has going on. I just don't see the Timberwolves really being higher than they were last year due to the loss of Cat. You know what I'm saying?
Levitability.
I just don't see that happening.
I'm going to give you my first reaction, and I can tell you the people I know in that Timberwolves organization are going to probably tell me I'm wrong, and so maybe they'll talk me into a different perspective tomorrow, because I haven't talked to them this evening, Chris. My first perspective is it's a really nice move for the Timberwolves in the medium term, and maybe the long term, some financial flexibility. I love DiVincenzo as an added piece and a competitor and some depth. But I think it's a minor setback in the short term. They are a little bit less impressive, a little bit less dangerous.
What did I just say? I told y'all. I didn't even have to, you know what I'm saying? I can tell y'all, like, in the short term, if they were trying to win a championship, adding Julius Randle on your team does not win you a championship. No offense, Julius.
The 4, as you noted, there are some questions with Julius Randle, and I think this just reflects the fact that they are going to build this team in the long term. We knew this around Anthony Edwards and around a player that can be they think, and I think we all agree, I certainly do, a top 5, top 3 player in the NBA going forward. So short term, on paper, Chris, I don't think they're as dangerous. Certainly they're starting 5 as they were, but Julius Randle is obviously offensively a weapon that you can use. We've seen him be pretty impressive when he's healthy. That Timberwolves coaching staff believes that they can take guys like this and improve them a little bit. They'll point to a guy like Naz Reid, and I think DiVincenzo is an addition in terms of shooting, in terms of athleticism, in terms of winning, in terms of defense, that they're going to like in that mix. So I think the Timberwolves take a small step back maybe this year. They're still obviously one of the top 3-4 teams. I think it's 3 in the Western Conference, but it gives them some depth and it gives them some flexibility to try to maintain this level for the long term.
So with that being,
for the long term, I just don't see Julius Randle staying there. I feel like he would be packaged for something else, something better. Again, no offense to them. I feel like the Kings would also take their spot as being a better team next year or this upcoming season, due to key players coming back like Fox. I think they added somebody as a small forward. I can't remember who it was. I think it was a good addition. And then having Sabonis and, you know, getting their team together as well. I just don't see the Timberwolves as a threat as they were last year with Cat.
Being said, long term, looking at both teams, who do you think has the edge in this one? Because it's not like all these players just came from college, right? They have a lot of years on them. Maybe not to the level of KD, Steph Curry, right, LeBron James, but they have picked up some miles in this game.
Look, I think it's the Knicks. Look, I think both teams can win this trade. And I know that Cat is, 29 years old. He's got 3 years left on his contract. And it's the financial realities of the new CBA are really restrictive when you have a bunch of guys. The Knicks are all in. They are all in.
Well, I mean, look like. So Brunson, Hart, Bridges, Anunoby, and Towns. I feel like they're going to switch this up. This is projected. I think they're going to switch this up. If I was coach, right? If I was coach of the Knicks, I had to sit down and look at what my team is. I haven't even looked at the bench for the Knicks, but I just know there's a couple other people that are not in this picture, obviously. Brunson obviously starting at the 1. At the 2, I may have to put Josh Hart off the bench. He's a good spark plug, so I might move Bridges to the 2, which gives me flexibility as a longer guard. He can play 2, 3, or 4, you know, guard up to those, play help defense essentially. I move Anunoby to the 3, or I might switch Bridges and Anunoby, either or. I gotta see how tall Anunoby is, but I might even switch Anunoby, put him at the 2, because he's a long defender. You know what I'm saying? There's not much 2 guards out there that may get past him because of his length. Put Bridges at the 3 because he may be more comfortable at guarding 3s and more lankier, you know, be able to guard the LeBrons, the KDs, the, you know, etc. Put Towns at the 4, and then take out Mitch Robinson and put him at the 5. And the only reason I want to put Mitch Robinson at the 5 is he's a great rebounder and he has that strength and durability at center, versus Cat. He's not really, he's like 80, you know what I'm saying? Like, they shy away from playing the 5. They want to play the 4 because it's easier for them. It's less physical. They don't have to worry about getting rebounds and being the necessarily enforcer. They just have to play. There's a certain way they could play, you know what I'm saying? You're playing more of like KD's, Draymond Green's, which they're like not as tall as them, but they're also not that big either, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you're playing center, there's people who are 7 foot, 7'1", 7'2", 7'3", strong, you know what I'm saying? I just don't think Cat's mentally strong for that. He may be physically strong, he's not mentally strong for that.
Look at that starting 5 right there. I think that for the New York Knicks, this year, next year, maybe the year after that, the duration of Towns' contract, it makes them a team that should and I think will compete at the highest levels in the NBA. I think New York wins the trade if we're looking for a winner. And I think the Timberwolves, it's TBD, but I don't hate it for them either.
Bill Ryder breaking down the latest, a shocking trade. Dante DiVincenzo, Julius Randle going to Minnesota in exchange for Karl Anthony Towns coming to the Big Apple. What a development, Bill. We always appreciate the insight. And this was Karl Anthony Towns before
I don't think
the trade
they
had been
told him
announced.
to trade either.
So he probably
I think
knew.
they just sent
Dot,
him
dot,
over.
dot.
They told him at the
Pretty
last second, like,
safe
hey,
to say,
the trade is
maybe
New
not
York.
so happy
It's not a
with that
death
move,
wish,
but that's the
we gotta
business
go.
of the NBA. Star players get traded left and right, and they have to adjust to
Kinda hate that
their
they
new
only showed
environment.
The Knicks projected starting lineup, and they could have showed me the Timberwolves, and I would have probably dissected that, but it still would have stayed the same. I don't think my answer would have changed any more about the lineup. To be honest, like he said, they're not as scary